Vanessa Goldine, and this is the lecture portion of the Spring Qigong class. So a lot of people who teach Qigong you're just learning movements. And I think that's great, but I think it's really important in terms of what I do, because in my wellness practice, I develop a student-teacher relationship through the practice of Qi Ne Song, which is an extension of the Qigong practice. Qi Ne Song is applied Qigong that I use in the treatment room specifically to help people move stagnant energy in their minds, their bodies, their hearts. And then the seasonal Qigong is something that we offer to help keep you, it's a Yang Sheng practice for springtime. So it's specific movements of Qigong and meditations of Qigong for the springtime that help us to maintain our balance. And spring is the most challenging seasonal transition of the year. So help you understand that the totem animal for the spring Qigong is the dragon. A dragon is a composite creature. Many different animals go into the mythical creation of the dragon. Dragons are fierce and wild, and they come and they go, and they're unpredictable. So spring is much like that. It can be, well, it was 84 degrees here yesterday, and by the time I left my office, literally, I have a 5-minute drive home. From the time I left my office, it was warm, bright, and sunny. And by the time I got home, the dark clouds had moved in. It was starting to rain. The wind was blowing, and it was cold. That's spring for you. So it's a lot of ups and downs for the body. As a wellness practitioner, I notice that there are definite patterns during the seasonal changes that people get a little out of sync. So whatever it is, that sleep is disturbed, or maybe their digestion is off, or they're not pooping well. Those are the kinds of things that we start to notice during the springtime, or they just feel, out of sorts. So the seasonal changes can do that, spring in particular. So we keep that in mind. So we've talked about, spring literally jerks around. It comes up and down, and it's all over the place. It's arising out of the deep water energy of wintertime, which is very introspective. Spring is not a full yang season like summer, but it's a very powerful surging energy. We have the sap rising in the trees. We have the leaves bursting forth. We have migratory animals, both the birds and the mammals are migratory. Also sea creatures that are migrating during the spring season. So it's a lot of energy moving within the environment of just life in general on the planet Earth in the hemispheres where the spring is happening. Of course, we're opposite, the southern hemisphere, so they're experiencing something completely different. They're in autumn, which is another transitional season that has challenges, but none of them like springtime. So when I talk about springtime being a time to take better care of yourself, it's a real focus of understanding that the Yang Sheng of spring says, take it easy, move slowly, enjoy the burgeoning spring and spring fever that comes with it. So sometimes when the spring starts to come on, we feel tired or lazy, and we just want to maybe lay on a blanket outdoors. Those are all things that are natural instincts that you should follow. We draw on the practice of Yang Sheng to nourish our life and our bodies during this season. So self-care in the springtime involves eating a lighter diet, having plenty of fresh greens, maybe rice, instead of a heavier grains like oats or barley that we might have in the wintertime. It's also staying away from cold wind. It's important to not expose what we call your wind gates around your head, your ears, to the cold wind. So if the weather is blustery and chilly still, just keep your head wrapped up and don't spend a lot of time out in a changeable or extreme wind. Soaking in hot water is an excellent thing to do for the body during the springtime. Helps loosen up the sinews of the body, waking up from wintertime. Also, if you don't have a bath, you can take a nice warm shower with a light cold rinse off. No cold plunges at this time of year. That's not the most advisable thing to do. That's a little too shocking to your system. I know all of the people who are jacked up on adrenaline just think that's the greatest thing in the world, but it's not always helpful, and it's not helpful for all types of people. There are some people who do not do well with cold plunges. So just because it's a fad thing or things that people are doing, and even though it could be really good for you, it's not necessarily the right thing for everyone. And that's part of Yang Sheng, is learning to operate within the wisdom of what your body tells you. So self-treatment during or self-care during the Springtime involves light stretching and Qigong, avoiding strenuous workouts. The heavy HIIT workouts and the CrossFit and things like that are not necessarily beneficial to people. Those are just going to up your adrenaline, and that's too much during this season. I don't think they're good for you any time of the year. You can check with Huberman's Lab. He'll back me up on that. And but moving is very good. Keeping the body supple, getting your sap is rising as well as the tree. So you got to kind of get your body back into the moving mode. Massaging your belly. I'm going to be doing the Chin Tsung classes here in springtime in April 20th and 21st. So that modality is very helpful. Gardening, getting outside, working with plants. If you don't have a garden or you're not a gardening person, go visit gardens, botanical gardens, or go to parks. Just get out and walk through the neighborhoods and see what's blooming in people's yards. It's very uplifting to our spirit in the springtime to see the surge of new life and to hear the birds singing and enjoy all the things that outdoor has to offer. The elemental force of spring is wood, of course, because it's all about trees. Trees are very grounded. Trees are very wise. Trees are ecosystems all into themselves. So we tap into the power of trees in the Qigong by strengthening our torso, our trunk, getting more limber in our spine, improving our movement of breath. These are all things that are going to be a part of the spring Qigong practice. The springtime is also marked by the equinox, which we just had last week. Equinox, of course, meaning equal balance between daylight and sunlight. Daylight and nighttime light. Nighttime, there's no light at nighttime. Daytime and nighttime. I asked some people not too long ago, what does the equinox stand for? And it was surprising how many people did not know that that's what's happening. Equal hours of daylight and nighttime. So with that in mind, that's why spring, the emphasis is on balance. Balance and strengthening our fluidity. We want to become more fluid. We want to be able to move and sway just like trees and plants do in the breeze. So the wood element also rules the liver and the gallbladder. Spring is a time that is really great to undertake a liver cleanse, something just light. I have the Bridge to Health seasonal spring cleanse is now available on my website for $25. It's an online guided spring detox that focuses on things that are important to keep in mind during the springtime. So that's very good. Your diet, as I mentioned earlier, should be light. Understanding a little bit more about the liver. The liver is considered the general of the body. It really keeps all the other organs in line. It's directly connected to the spleen. So when the liver is a little toxic, then the spleen is going to suffer, and then that's going to hamper digestion, and you're going to a whole downward cycle there. So lightening up with the liver and giving that a cleanse. The liver is responsible for the flow of qi in the body. That's energy and information, as well as the blood. And it's also responsible for our ease and ability to express our emotions. So when we're toxic in the liver, we tend to get a little repressed in our emotions. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Metabolism and detox are the primary functions of the liver, and the gallbladder releases bile, which carries the toxins out that the liver has processed out into the digestive system. And the bile, very acidic, is also very antimicrobial and supports keeping and maintaining a healthy microbiome. So when people are having trouble with their microbiome, usually there's a problem with the liver. You can't just target, the microbiome and think, oh, I'm going to put some probiotics in there and everything will be great. If your liver's not really up to top speed, you can put all the expensive things in there you want. You're not going to make the progress that you need to, and that's another subject for another day. The liver regulates the blood clotting and hormone production in a dense breaking down the toxic substances. We mentioned that. I'm looking at my notes here. It's also very key in immunity. So if you're having trouble with seasonal allergies, that's an indication that your liver needs a little tune-up. And I think that just about sums it up about the liver, except to understand that in Taoist medicine, the organs correlate to various different emotional states. So the emotional states that are in balance or out of balance with the liver will affect us in certain ways. So balanced liver a person whose liver is doing well and functioning at its best will display kindness and gentleness of spirit. They're fluid in their body and have a light energy. They don't feel heavy or overbearing when you meet them or you're spending time with them. They're easy to get along with. Things move very pleasantly. They have a strong sense of groundedness, and they're just the kind of people you just feel good being around. When someone's liver is out of balance, then you're going to have things like cranky, controlling, irritable, a person who has resentments. That really is the gallbladder. When you've got resentments, bitterness, the gallbladder and liver definitely get involved. With other manifestations of out of balance liver and gallbladder are anger, crankiness, a dullness of spirit, being stiff, emotionally unavailable or emotionally immovable, somebody who just can't give or take or compromise at all. Always the kinds of manifestations of personality that you're going to see when the liver is toxic. So you get that liver cleaned up and your whole attitude, your whole outlook on life improves when your liver is not quite so overrun by your strong emotions. The elemental force that balances liver, the wood energy of the liver, is the metal element. So when we are having difficulty with our emotions of resentment, anger, frustration, crankiness, those kinds of things, we look to connect with our feelings. So it is sometimes the case when we are having these kind of pile-ups with our liver and the crankiness that ensues, or the anger or resentments or bitternesses that we can't get over. Some of those things have been, for some people, for years and years and years, stuck in the same pattern. We look to connecting with how we feel viscerally within our body. And when you pay attention to the visceral feelings in your body and you bring those things back up and get them on the table so you can sit with them and you can be with it. You don't have to model down into it. You don't have to hash things over. Talking about it is not helpful. But you just being with how you feel, sitting with it, and understanding if you feel the way that you do, you feel that way for a good reason. It's important to be able to allow the body to digest the ways that we feel. And sometimes when we get cranky and congested in our liver, it's because we have undigested emotional experiences, traumas, or things that happened to us where we just felt like something wasn't fair. So take some time in springtime to get out in the fresh air, enjoy life by walking around and having a somewhat meditative, quiet walk of yourself where you can really get in touch with how you feel and express to yourself, this is the way I feel. And I feel this way for a good reason. That's a direct quote from my Jinnitsong teacher in California, Gilles Marin. You feel the way you do for a good reason. And that relieves a lot of guilt and shame out of the ways that we feel. Most addiction comes from the fact that somebody is really suffering. They've had things that have really hurt them. And the addiction is just a way of trying to sublimate what feels like too much. So have compassion on those who have addiction issues because they feel the way they do for a good reason, and that means that they're hurting. And so we want to bring healing to those people and support them. So the liver also moistens the sinews of your body and makes you flexible and strong. Another reason to do that light detox in the springtime. So let's talk a little bit about spring foods and then we'll wrap up here. The foods that are best for the body in the springtime are the greens. We have the citrus still from winter. Lemon and olive oil in the morning is a great way to clean out the liver. You can have steamed greens and rice. There's the spring onions that are available. There's certain fruits are, still not quite fully in season yet, but we do still have some apples left over from wintertime. You can enjoy as applesauce, which is good for the digestive system in spring because spring is a mixture of winter and the spring months. You also want to bring on things like turmeric and ginger tea, dandelion tea, also very good for detoxifying the liver. So that's just a little support to the spring Qigong and helps you understand that we're not just practicing the Qigong, we're also adopting a different way of living, a slight shift in the way we're taking care of our body during the springtime. Thank you so much. Vanessa Goldine with Bridge to Health Wellness and the Awaken and Evolve Learning Center. You can find us on YouTube at the Awaken and Evolve YouTube channel and on Instagram at Scottsdale Bridge to Health.